Well, very nice to meet you guys. This is going to be an exciting class. Um, I'd love to learn more about you guys and some of your goals. And as we go through the three sessions, just kind of like see how I can also help and, um, with giving you some ideas, some tips to help you get your own project started. Um, a little bit about me. I've been producing for about 20 years now, mainly on the independent side, as well as doing a few studio movies. Um, I initially, long story short, I moved out to LA in around 2000. In college, I was invited to be in a sketch comedy group. I didn't really ever imagine joining the entertainment industry. And after our first show, I was like, man, this is awesome. I really want to do more comedy. And so I moved out to LA and signed up at Groundlings and Improv Olympic and was doing commercial acting and then wasn't really booking anything or didn't see my career moving forward. And so I just decided to write something kind of about my life as a short film. I was working as a bar back in Hollywood at a nightclub, and so I decided to kind of do a short about that. And a lot of the people that worked there came on and helped us crew. And then I went on Craigslist and hired people, and had no idea what I was doing or any kind of like idea of how to produce. But I just kind of like just decided not to think about it and just did it, and found some people that kind of knew what they were doing to come in and help me. And so before I knew it, I had an actual short film. And the takeaway from that was it was really like a great first lesson in how to produce a movie, of just going for it and just believing in yourself and having a great team and learning as you go. And all those things really just were just like unbelievable takeaways to this day, even though it's like 20 years ago, still stands as like, the best experience one of the best experiences I've ever had, just like pure filmmaking. And I try to take that into every project that I do moving forward. Um, After that, I was doing more music videos and commercials, and then I met my wife, and she's like, "Why don't you do film production for a living?" I was like, "Oh, I never thought about that." So I a lot of the work or the platform at the time was Craigslist, where you could find jobs, and so my first job was on a rom com where I was the production manager on it. I started working in crew, and I was about to go to production. They didn't really have much of a cast, and I said, "Well, what have you thought about casting lead actors or name actors?" And so they were like, "No." And so without thinking, I picked up the phone and kind of started making offers for them, and we ended up with a pretty good cast. I ended up getting a producer credit on it, and kind of never looked back since. So I didn't really go to film school, or I didn't um, have really a plan going into producing, and so I just kind of learned along the way. And from there, um, have produced movies for Legendary. I did two studio movies for them as part of the Thinning franchise. I did a movie called Internet Famous that with Lakeshore that sold to Netflix. Um, my company, we financed a film called Funny Story that we released a couple of years ago. Um, and along the way, I've just kind of learned as I went. But in the meantime, I have also had movies like uh, the Axe Murders of Villisca, which I helped raise the funding for, and I found the director, found the financing, put it all together. Um, and I have a movie in pre-production now that we've kind of found the money, put the talent together, and so I've kind of been, currently kind of dancing between both worlds of like, I have a partner who's a writer director, and so a lot of the stuff he makes, we kind of help package, and then I also will find a great script. I just found through a script consultation a script that I loved on Stage 32. And we're working together on that one, and just kind of anywhere and everywhere. I have a book I just read. I just have now going to work on to see if we can get that going. And you know, just kind of doing kind of following your passion. And so I know that's a lot being thrown at you, but with this class, I've kind of developed it into more of a step-by-step approach to what are some of the fundamentals that can get you from having an idea or a script all the way to getting it made. So without further ado, I will share my screen with you. Um, I've I've put together a little uh, PowerPoint presentation that kind of overviews sort of this guide. And so I think, for me, I think that making films is a huge endeavor, and it's really a lot to kind of, like where do you even start? So I try to like do it within a step-by-step process. And I feel like it's similar to like building a business or building a product and launching it. Um, you really want to take it from a step-by-step process. And so um, the first step usually is, well, let me just, first step would be finding this material. But um, starting the class today, I wanted to give you some kind of just key components or guides that I've used that have helped me sort of understand the kind of how to like thematically how to approach filmmaking, and one of them, the top one is, um, I heard this from another producer, and it's give them a reason not to say no. And um, w- the way I take that is your script is so good, your package with talent or your package with whatever is comprised of, they just cannot say no to it. There's no reason not to say no, or there's no reason to say no. So you want to really figure out like, before I go out to the marketplace, do I have a project that is so good that no one could say no to it? Um, and I think if you feel like there's holes in your package, then that those are things that you really want to try to address before you take it out to the marketplace. Um, with that said, even though people may give them no reason to say no, it just may not be right for them, or it may not be the right script for them, or the right project for them, or they may not want to make movies, or they may be going out of business. And so you will definitely get a lot of no's, a lot of passes. And so, you know, um, you would need to keep moving forward. And I think that if anything is important as a producer, it's like you're alone a lot of times in this, and um, you have to keep pushing yourself. And it's so easy to kind of be like, well, I gave it a shot, now I'm gonna move on. Um, but keep moving forward. If you believe in something, there's a reason why you're here. There's a reason why you have a project you're gonna make. It's important, and you have to tell the story. And even though people are, you've gone to a few people and they've said no, um, keep going, keep finding the right team, the right package, and believe in yourself, and it's worth it. um the next thing after that is networking. That's like everything. you know um Most of the films I've sold, or the uh talent that I've worked with, it's all because of my network of people, a network of friends that are studio executives, that are agents, that are other producers, that are working distribution. Um, and a lot of times I'll reach out to someone at one company, and say, "Hey, I'd love to get this script over to this person. Can you make an introduction?" Or I'll know someone at an agency, like, "Hey, I'd love to get this script to this talent. Do you mind connecting with your buddy who's an agent?" Um, it's at the agency. And so I think it's really important to, um, not even on a level of packaging, but on a level of um, finding a good writer or finding a good director or finding stories, going out there and, you know, um, going to film festivals, going to meetups, being active in the film community, being active online in an online film community, um, watching a lot of movies, just any way that you can kind of associate yourself with other members of the entertainment industry. um, I think a lot of great things can happen. Um, one note that I do have that is um, when you're first starting out, a good opportunity is to say, "Hey, I'm new in this business. I would like to do like an informational interview. I want to learn more about what it is you do." And so if you don't have connections and you're new, just be honest with people and be like, "I really like the work you do. I'd love to ask you some questions, and I'm thinking about getting started in this business." Everybody likes to talk about themselves. Everybody likes to um, tell them their story or share something, or. And the truth is, everyone likes to help. And it may seem like a business that is hard to break into, but if you come at it from an honest place of saying, "I want to learn. I want to meet new people. I just want to connect and grow and over time build that network," and you can do that. And so I think even without having a project or without having um, much of a plan, you can just say, "Hey, I want to meet you or want to grab coffee." Um, a lot of projects. I have a project now that is in development that I just had lunch with another producer, and I was telling her about my life growing up and some ideas and thoughts, and she's like, "That would be a movie." And then she made a phone call, and then another phone call. Before you know, we're all talking. So it's like going have coffee with people and or someone you like, a director you like, or a writer that you like, or a book that you read. Reach out. You never know. You never know until you ask. That's the producer motto that I also try to live by. Um, and so I think there's a lot of this business with making it, but a lot of it is also networking, and you can't discount the ability to network. I think that is really just as important as a producer, in terms of um, not only getting the project, not only finding the project, but getting it made. So it's kind of you know, um, it's a key component. Um, the last key component I have is if it's not in the script, it's not in the movie. And I think one of the times, and I'm definitely guilty of this, is like you're just like, let's go get it made. Let's just go do it. Why, come on, the script's pretty good. But is it that good? Once it's made, whenever you're shooting it, it is what it is. That really, like the time to really make it great is before you go into production. And so once it's in production, then that's it. That's the blueprint. That is the design for the movie, and you can't really change it much after that. And so the first thing we're going to talk about today is really making sure that your script is as good as it can be before going to the next step. Um, so before I jump in, do you guys have any questions or any thoughts on that? All right. Well, now we are moving on. So finalize the script. Okay. So you found the script. You love the script. It's such a great script. Everybody loves the script. But are you sure it's ready to go? Are you sure that um, that it's so good that everyone's just gonna love it? I had one project that I did where the studio financed the movie, and um, when we were in post production, they had all these creative notes, and I was really uncomfortable because they didn't give us any creative notes or any script notes beforehand. We just went into production, and then they had all these issues with the stuff when they watched the cut of the movie, and that was another example of in the preliminary stages of pre production. making sure that your script is really airtight, it's really great, and that uh, it's going to be something that uh, you feel confident about going in. So, um, key creative steps. I would say the first creative step would be um, professional feedback. So, um, professional feedback is uh, script consultations, um, submitting to script screenplay competitions, getting script coverage. If you submit it to a lit agency or a manager, maybe they'll give you coverage on it. Um, but really kind of testing it out, kind of seeing what others have to say from a script consultation or professional level. Um, Another thing that I try to do with all of my projects is a table read, and I usually try and cast it with actors. Um, One of the things that's been really cool is with the quarantine back in 2020 was we did one of them over Zoom, which was the first time we did it not in person, and it really was great because it was easy to record the session, and it was also something where it saves a lot of time. We didn't have to drive out somewhere and order pizzas, and we kind of just jumped right into it. So and one of the things with the table read is that's important is at the end of it to ask questions. Ask the people who were participating in table read, what did you think? What do you think didn't work? How did you feel about this character? What are some of the your thoughts on this character? Was the character have a good arc? Did you feel the character's motivation? What was some of the things that you felt like the character was lacking? Um, and how does the script play? I think one of the things that is really exciting in the casting process is watching the film come to life, watching several different actors playing the same role, auditioning for that role, different takes you get on it. And so, um, this is kind of like in a small preliminary basis way of testing it out with actors and seeing how and also as a director maybe you can stop and say, can you try it this way, or can you um you know I think you can develop the script even further based off the table read. Um and then the third one would be network feedback. And so that essentially is friends, family, and most importantly, other people that you know that are in the industry. If they'd read the script and just, give you some kind of feedback and give you some thoughts on it. And I think through those three methods, you should have a really good um, insight onto what's working, what's not working, and if it's something people would want to see, if it's something that people feel like they would watch when they are sitting in front of Netflix, or if they're sitting in front of their TV and want to watch something, if it's something that is worthwhile. And I think that's also something you have to ask yourself, if it's good, if it's something you think is great but everyone else thinks is good, you have to ask yourself, is it worth me spending my time on to make it great, or is it something that I realize is not going to be that great and maybe I should move on from? So I think this step gives you that um, opportunity to. It's kind of like a now or never. But once you really fulfill all these three items, then you kind of know what you're working with. And so if you're still loving it and you're ready to go, then we'll go to the next step, which is creating the pitch materials. Oh no, sorry. Now looking at it from the business steps. Um, this has really kind of changed with the industry. You know, there were, theatrical had more of a play at the time for independent films. Um, the foreign market was a little bit more unique to the domestic industry, film business. And now with streamers, it's it's really, it's like you make the film and you try to get it onto a streamer. And a lot of times the streamers, it's a global deal, but it doesn't 100% have to be that way, because there are still some genres that you can be a bit nuanced. So, like something that maybe will work on a domestic level, but not an international level. Like maybe it'll play for a US or North American audience, but won't play for an international audience. Or if it's um, a horror film, maybe it'll play on an app like Shutter or something that is more, or another horror app that is more centralized towards a certain audience, and not and maybe it'll perform better to that audience as opposed to just trying to get it onto Amazon Prime or Netflix. um, or maybe it's something that is a horror film that really would play well on a limited theatrical scale, where it's something people would go to the theater for Friday nights and watch. So really kind of thinking about, like, who the audience is, and what the best outlet for them would be. um and so kind of having that in mind. And then the next thing is it unique in the genre? you know if it's, let's say, a horror film, is it something that people have seen before, or is it something completely new? And when you're pitching it, I think that's one of the things, just like a product, like, it's a watch that you're selling, but how does this watch stand out amongst other watches? How does your film stand out amongst other, if it's a romantic comedy, what is it new that's bringing it to the rom-com genre? What's fresh about it? And how are audiences, why are they going to want that? Um, and then on top of that, setting a distribution goal. So if you do want it to play on a streamer, great. But if you want to play it to a limited theatrical, and then have it play in foreign markets, or um, you know, could really kind of decide, through research, how films within your demographic or within your genre play. You can kind of set a distribution goal based off of, like, a best case scenario based on these comparable films. Um, Other things that you can do would be distribution goals that are maybe different than just going out to doing, selling it to a streamer, um, or trying to get it sold to a streaming VOD platform. There's like the old school roadshow, where maybe you can take your film to college campuses across the country, or it's a faith-based movie, and you can take it to different churches across the country and exhibit the film that way. Or you have a niche fan base, and you create your own O&O website that you sell and release it directly, exclusively from that platform. Um, the world is your oyster. You can do however you want. I mean, there's a general way to sell, but if you feel like, my film is just going to be lost in the sea of films on the streaming platform, wherein I can maybe have a different route of going about it, like creating my own platform and selling it directly to a fan base, because there's already a built-in fan base and I can market to that fan base. Maybe that's a better opportunity. Or if it's to a college audience and you think, wow, this would really play, going from a college town to college town. And then after that, maybe sell it to a streaming platform. That's another distribution goal. A lot of this sort of can work backwards from this goal, where you start with comparable films and then see how you can differentiate your film from these films that have already come out, and how you can maybe look into some of the patterns, or the approaches that these films have taken, and say, is my film going to work that same way, or is there a different roadmap that I should use to then release this film. And when I go to an investor, um, what is that opportunity that I'm offering them about going that different way, or showing them exactly how this movie is done, and this new movie can do just as well. So really knowing that you have a good script and you have a good plan for it, those are the kind of the two key components that you want to really formulate as a producer before even getting to what is the next step, which is the pitch materials. um, and so, uh, I'm assuming you guys um, have looked into this before, or um, have developed lookbooks or pitch decks in the past, but um, on a case by case basis, I think um, there's a different approach you could take each time to putting together pitch materials. Um, I think on one hand, a pitch deck is great because it provides an overview of what the story is, the synopsis, the visuals behind the story, the talent um, that you imagine would be great for the movie, um, an overview of the director, the director's statement, comparable films. I think all of that is really helpful, but it's also kind of boring. It's like, it's hard for anyone to really get excited about that. So I think if you have something that you can share with people, like a sizzle reel or a short film, or a rip-o-matic, that's also something that can help get people's attention. I think there's so much happening in this world today with, there's, so many competing platforms, and there's so much media, and there's, um, so many emails people get that, if you send a script and a lookbook, how does that really attract someone's attention? And I think, um, one thing is, like a sizzle reel, where maybe you go and film um, key stuff from the movie, put it into a sizzle, and show or cast some actors and perform like a small, put together like a trailer or something, or a promo, something that can really hype people up about this movie, and then show them this lookbook and the script with a little more heat behind it. Um, that's a good opportunity. Another thing people do is called the rip-o-matic, which is taking scenes from other movies that are similar to yours. Like, let's say you have an action film, and it's about a guy being chased across states by an 18-wheeler. You can take different scenes from other movies that are similar to that to kind of show like the action and the tone that you want to capture. And I think that could help with, you know, building up some excitement for the project. Another really good opportunity is a short film version of the movie. Um, this is an opportunity if um, you have a writer who wants to be a director but has no feature film experience, then maybe they can make a short film, and your investor or buyer can then gain confidence with the um, through the short film in a first time director. Or if you have an experienced director and you have a short film that accompanies the pitch and the script, then it can help with creating that excitement, and maybe knowing that the short film is a sample of what the future could be. Maybe that's the missing piece that can really help to move the project forward. I think a lot of people, and we go back to looking for reasons to say no. When you have a good pitch deck, you have a good script, you have a short, then they're going to say, hey, well, what about the budget? What about the schedule? What about your plan? And that's when you say, boom, Well, actually, I have a whole production strategy. So, you work out, you figure out what the budget is, what the schedule is, and you have a whole strategy and say, this is a $2 million movie. We have 25 days to shoot it. Here's a layout of how much it's going to cost. Here's what we're going to be shooting every single day, and here's how we're going to accomplish it. And then also here's our creative team that I've worked already extensively with to develop a visual package, from costume designers, production designers, DP, and you guys have the whole creative um, uh, look and design of it already in place. Um, then you have a good solid script, you have a great pitch materials, you have a budget and schedule, and you have a team. How could anyone say no? Um, and then on top of that, you want to do um, lists of, maybe you are producing it, but you haven't really built out a team yet, and so the talent list could probably start right after the script phase, where you start putting together a list of talent, of directors, and thinking about cameo opportunities. And so usually then you import that into the lookbook or pitch deck, and um, it kind of gives people a more clarity on like who can really work in this movie or who is going to be an ideal fit for this movie. Um, if you are able to get it to talent and get them to read it, and they really connect with it and want to be part of it, then you're even that much closer to um, being told that they can't say no to it, because you have a great solid script that they love, you have great pitch materials, you have a budget, you have schedule, you have a director, you have some talent involved, um, and it's a solid package. And you have a distribution, kind of some ideas in mind of how it's going to have a return based off of either comparable movies or how your film is unique to these comparable movies. They could do even better, or a different approach. So um, yeah, that is you know just some of the ways that you can kind of start to think about really putting together this ultimate package. Do you guys have any questions um, at this stage yet? No. All right. I hope I'm not boring you guys. All right. Um, okay. Great. Any other questions? Dale, I think you're muted. I think you're
No
muted.
Okay,
Yeah. Oh,
can you hear me
sorry,
now?
Dale. Yeah.
When you're putting together a lookbook and you have, your ideal cast member, are you allowed to take a picture of them and import it into the lookbook without any sort of legal wrangling?
Well, I think if you like publish it, then maybe, but if it's something that is just for informational purposes, like if you're just putting it together as a visual component, I don't think that's an issue. I mean, I'm not an attorney, but that's something it's pretty standard that we usually do. It's just like have people that we think would be a good fit. And we also preference in the lookbook, like uh casting ideas. So we know that's like they're not attached. These are just simply ideas we have. And then it's more of a reference to the the look, or the kind of the representative of like what the cast member you have in mind would be for that role.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Faye, did you have a question?
No, I mean, I have lots of like distribution questions, but I'm assuming that will probably come in later on. So far, it's great.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's yeah, we'll definitely cover that in the next class. Right now, for this class, it's really just about getting together a plan and getting it ready to take out to start pitching.
Yeah.
In terms of distribution, it's changed so much with how, at least when I started, with the goal was always to try and get it in theaters and then hoping that it would do well in theaters, then expand theaters and maybe go from like 2 screens to 5 screens, 50 screens, and on and onwards. And then everyone throughout the country is talking about it. And then you make a really good deal with like Netflix or a second window. And now that theatrical is sort of out the window for independent films, there is still an opportunity if you want to come up with ideas of how to exploit it, from going and releasing it on your own, or doing screenings, or doing road shows, or doing going to churches if it's a faith-based movie. So and then there still is the ability to carve out foreign markets, and doing deals on a film for foreign as well as doing a domestic deal. And so in terms of financing, that is still something that is pretty active with independent films. It depends a lot on who you have in the cast, if the value is high enough for it to attract foreign buyers, but that's still a marketplace for that. And the the other thing that's kind of interesting too is in the independent film world, used to be like you really want to have good film names attached to your film, but because of there's so many shows on like Hulu, Netflix, and Apple, and you name it, that some of these actors that are now supporting roles or day playing roles on bigger shows that are streaming shows, their names are actually pretty good for names if you want to make a film and sell it to Netflix. So that's an optimistic thing. And so that's something that and usually those actors want to be in a movie, or they want to have an opportunity for films. And the hard part was, it used to be that because they had they didn't have enough recognition to carry a movie. But now, because of the value of TV, that dynamic has changed. So it's really comes down to attracting talent to your movie, and a lot of times with distribution, it is based off of who the talent is in the movie, which is a whole new, used to be helpful to have talent, but now it's like almost like talent almost like greenlights the movie with the right talent on board. So yeah, so I think I think sometimes it is dependent on cast, but depends on the genre.
Yeah. Well, I can save all my distribution questions for later then.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think kind of going back to just putting together a talent list. I think really knowing what your budget is, and what's realistic at that budget level, because some talent or some directors are not interested in doing something under 5 million, but then finding out which actors or which talent, which directors are interested in doing that at that level, and making it a realistic approach can can really can kind of further align you in the marketplace, and setting yourself up for more success. So really doing due diligence and finding movies that were made at a similar budget level and had success, or had a director that's had a series of successes at that budget level, and really finding and putting together that list and kind of honing in on it and trying to formulate a bit of a package. I think that is another key component to making sure that you have a package where it's with people that you people can't say no to. I think a lot of times, and this has happened to me before, but where you've casted people that you think are great or perfect for the role, but they just aren't suitable enough to get the movie financed. And now you're kind of stuck because you've offered the role to them, but you can't get the movie made. So it's a bit of a dance of like taking it out, putting these lists and saying like to a sales agent or to a buyer and saying, hey, what do you think about these people? And they may say these two, they'll may highlight a few names and say these names would really work for me to want to come in and finance it, but these 8 other names, they're not something I'm interested in. So it's a bit of a kind of a dance of like, having a package that you can get in the door with some ideas for cast, and then work together to try and lock in that cast and get closer to the finish line. And so another thing that's helpful is like who if star talent that you could take it to directly, and then that could help obviously with getting it to a point where maybe like having their name attached might help get a director attached or get other talent that want to be on board, and creating the snowball effect of maybe you have your friend who's maybe not a huge name or is a working actor or actress, and but enough where people can say, oh, well, they're in it, I'd be interested in checking it out, and really kind of creating some excitement that way as well. I think if you feel like you got a good package, a good sizzle or short film, good script, and you're ready to kind of start sharing it with people, having a good list of people that you want to take it to or that you think would be right for it, I think that is a good time to start the conversation with buyers or with sales agents or with investors, because once you're locked in and once you make an offer out and they accept it, then you're kind of, then they're, it's like buying a house. Once you've agreed to the offer, you're in. So want to make sure it's the right person that isn't going to make it even more challenging to get the movie financed. And so that is really like a big part of it. The other thing is, which we didn't touch on, is cameo opportunities. There was a story I heard about this guy who worked with Martin Sheen's daughter, and Mr. Sheen came to the set that day, and they asked if he could just sit in the background, sitting on a park bench reading a newspaper, and they did like maybe a talent release with him or whatever, and then what do you know, he's on the poster. So I think having someone that not necessarily that example, but like you do have a movie with like really great leads, but it's not something that you're able to um, cast A-list actors that want to do it at this budget level. Then the next idea I have would be a cameo actor. Maybe it's an uncle, or maybe it's some smaller role that comes in town, visits, and the key is being able to film them out in 2 or 3 days, maybe or one day. You could do 5 scenes that are across the movie in multiple acts. So you see the cameo actor throughout the movie, but um, they're only acting in the movie for one day, and maybe you pay them a cameo rate, which is outside of the what you're kind of budgeted for with the actors, but it allows you to really have name recognition, and it's and that could help with getting the film sold and give it some marketability, because I think most movies, you need to have a name behind it to create marketability, and so that's really part of the value that an investor or a buyer will really understand. So each movie is different. Like a horror film, you may not have to have star talent behind it because it's very concept driven, but it may be really exciting to know who the director is and who's telling that story. And so maybe what's the driver on that is the director, or the driver is the concept. But if it's a character based indie drama, or it could be the same thing where it's really about this performance, but how are you going to get people to want to watch the movie? And if we're talking about a world where thousands of movies come out a year, how does your movie really stand out? And maybe you are able to get a name actor that could come in for a couple days and make them a headlining name, or give them the and in the credits, and that can really be a difference maker in helping your film stand out more. And so it would be also another way of getting people to say where they can't say no, because you do have talent that is marketable for your movie. So those are all kind of key elements that can kind of help shape the package. Further to that is thinking about and this is kind of further with the getting it made, and we talk about it in the next class, but it would be state tax credits, or how to film in an area that is an opportunity for the movie to have soft money, which would be money coming back to the production through tax credits. And so outside of having a good script, a good sizzle or lookbook, and a good talent behind it, you also have a bit of a guarantee with soft money, where it's you're able to let your investor know that some money is coming back on their spend. So and then from there, you're kind of creating less and less risk along the way. Does anybody have any questions on that, or thoughts? Okay.
I have one. In the instance of like a genre movie like horror, where you don't need as many names, do you feel like it's more valuable to try to still get that theatrical release? Like, does that make a difference on the back end when you're making those deals later, even if it's really small, or is like festival runs better? Like, have you had any experience in that sort of area where it wasn't names that, helped get distribution, but, festivals versus trying to do like a small theatrical release or anything like that?
Sure. Yeah. I think, like, especially with like horror, getting into the right festivals is like a key goal. So if you could get into like Beyond Fest or Fantastic Fest or South by Southwest or Sundance, the Midnight Show, to me is like when I produce a horror film, like that's the goal, is to try and get it into one of these festivals that the buyers are going to be at, the fans are going to be at, and if you can strike a chord where it's really exciting, that like that to me is the goal. Having like getting to that moment where you have a great experience is the goal. So just like with an indie film, I think getting into Sundance or getting into a key festival is really kind of the goal. But I think for that, you have to be in a position where you know, everybody's on board with that, from the investor all the way down. Like that, like you kind of like it's kind of a crapshoot of like see what happens at the festival.
Because it adds like an extra year before they get any recoup too. So that's
Yeah,
you have to
yeah,
like do the whole circuit before you really can sell it. Yeah.
right. Because they're so spread out. So
Right.
maybe over 7 months, you're going from market to market. And I've had that with a film before, and we didn't get to any festivals. So, we decided to wait for Sundance, and then wait for South by, and then wait for Toronto, and then Tribeca, and then at the end of it, we just ended up making a deal, and and that was it. We did a home video deal at the time in 2010, and this was a cool movie with John Landis and Kevin Corrigan and Barry Bostwick. It was a great cast, great story. It's like a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's just like kind of luck of the draw, like it didn't work out. But I have had stuff that where it has had a better play. So yeah, I think that's the goal, especially for independent films and genre films, is to really make something that's unique to the audience, that's going to be exciting for them. And if a festival picks it up, that's a really big deal.
Right. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Sure. I'd love to learn, do you guys have projects that you're currently working on putting together and getting made? Yeah, I'd love to hear about them. Dale, do you have a project?
I'm not ready to talk about it, but maybe later on I'll get
Okay.
a little more courage about it.
Okay, cool. There you go. And Faye,
I have lots of projects.
exciting.
Yeah, I'm actually putting together a couple slates with my company, and I'm trying this kind of experimental strategy to try to diversify the risk for the investors.
Uh-huh.
So the hard thing is I have a couple contacts with acting talent. I myself am an actor. Obviously, I'm not a name, but I have a couple friends who've done really well, who kind of, if I can get some stuff together, have said that they would be willing to, be attached to certain things. But I mostly just really wanted to take this class to just make sure that I'm, sometimes you got to go back to like the basics and make sure you're not like forgetting something kind of key when you're like trying to do something a little out there.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm working on. And there's sort of 3 different genres that I mostly dabble in. I shouldn't say dabble, but I mostly work in. One is like cross genre. So like anything that's like mashing 2 things together. So like there's a queer action, there's a horror comedy, there's a rom-com horror, there's there's that sort of one group of films, and then sort of slice of life, indie, just kind of straight dramas, and then like dystopian sci-fi futuristic stuff.
Oh, it sounds like you have a lot of fun stuff that you're exploring.
It's fun, yeah. And mostly what I run into is, I get good feedback on the scripts. I get good feedback from talent, but I don't do enough networking. I don't really know enough people to hit up and collaborate. So that's something I'm trying to do more of. And right now I'm trying to put together sort of the most accessible of those, the ones that I feel like are the lowest budget, the simplest shoots, and trying to put those together for this coming year. But it's a little bit tricky because some of the writers and the directors that I work with are very adamant that they don't want to try to go out and get too many names. And that always becomes a conundrum of like, do I push them to go against their like artistic inclinations just to get it made, or do I wait and try to go the long haul with them and try to ask private equity to put something together, which just takes a lot longer. It's possible, one of them, we've got like 35,000 pledged, and we could probably green light it at like 70 because it can be done like almost micro budget. And, so there's things like that where I'm like, well, that might happen. That might come together and be great. But it's hard then because I don't know enough about the distribution side to tell investors what to expect. Do you know what I mean? That's where I'm like, if it does well in festivals, then it could be an outlier that gets a better deal. But if it doesn't, then, are we going to be self-distributing this on streaming? Or, are we going to try to get some really small deals somewhere? And I don't really know enough about that and how it's changed to give an answer I feel confident with, I guess. So that's what I'm trying to learn about. Is I'm trying to learn.
Sounds like you have some great opportunities that you've created for yourself. Like I think you have really good projects that that you believe in, that you kind of are passionate about, that you believe that can be successful. You put together a good team around it. Sounds like more networking, just knowing what people are looking for at different places, and getting it in the hands of the right people that have a successful track record of doing things or making projects similar to this, and it might be something they'd be interested in, and like how it could be a new material for them that is that they maybe be excited about. So I think networking is huge. And then with distribution, it's there's like there's so many outlets now. There's like AVOD, which for micro budget stuff like Tubi or Amazon Prime, like the self distribution model could work. I think.
But is there anywhere to get access to like what the numbers actually look like on those things? Because that's where I get very nervous. Is I don't want to overpromise something just being hopeful. I really want to have like hard data when I go to an investor, and I feel like all that stuff is so hard to say. Like I feel like
no one's really releasing those numbers yet. But there's like the podcast I listen to is Indie Film Hustle, and they have a couple. Let me see if I can find it. But they've had filmmakers on there that have talked about. I can't pull it up, but that have talked about releasing movies there and kind of just how they've done. And I know that's not like a great apples to apples comparison to your movie, but but really trying to like maybe even reach out to those filmmakers directly and ask them about what their experience was like and would you recommend going that route. I have a friend who has an app that she does really well on her, like she's created an app that's through Vimeo, I believe, where she produces and distributes and also acquires content for her app, and she's built kind of a business going that route. And so maybe going to an investor and trying to start up like a platform yourself that is based off of like a genre or based off of like capturing a niche audience could be interesting as well. I think that the play with like streamers really kind of backs into having a good festival run or having some kind of ability to attract an agent that will then help sell it to a streamer, or a producer's rep that will sell it to a streamers, or have you know, a self-distribution route where it is something that you don't go to a film festival, but you release it independently on your own through a
Yeah.
Tubi or an Amazon Prime. So I think there's only like really so many ways to go. But it's kind of like you never really know until you like how the market's going to respond until you release it. So it's tough to like give an investor really true insight on numbers. That's
Yeah.
kind of the risk involved. And when I talk to independent film investors, I'm pretty upfront about that. I say, I have done, made money as a producer, but I can't promise you that this movie is going to make money. But I can say that I've built up, a film that has a lot of value, and and so there is a bit of a risk, but there's also, the idea of like how it can be a reward for them,
Right.
And that could be, but with having a valuable project that has, a good budget, a good schedule, a good production strategy that's cost effective, that you're spending in all the right places to make it so that it's they understand like how the money's being spent, and
Yeah.
they really believe in the script and the story that's being told, and they know that it's going to reach the right audience because they're a fan of this project. It's an artistic endeavor where you don't really know how it's going to be received, but you know how it's going to be made. You know that at the end of the day, you're going to put together a quality project that's going to
Mhm.
look great. It's going to be well made, and you're going to have great cast around it. And so, as a producer, that's all you really can do. And then further to that, sales agents and anyone who's going to kind of broker a deal, they're kind of looking at it as like as part of like a like they're kind of brokering and looking at it like how it's going to do in the marketplace. And that's not something you control, but with but with also as a producer, it's like with networking and having a good relationship, like that is so valuable, by having like friends that are agents, or friends that are sales agents, friends that are working at studios, and kind of understand like what they're looking for, kind of figuring out like getting insight ahead of time from them, like why your package isn't going to work or what needs to be stronger, and being able to learn that ahead of time before you get to the point where it's all done, and then you're sharing with them and they're like, what the hell is this?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but saying like this is my list of like actors that I think would be great for this. This is like, we think this would be a good festival run, and really trying to get collective insight from a network of people to help shepherd in the project and get it on the right track. And I think that to me has really been really beneficial to me, is like most of the stuff that I've gotten set up. I recently got something set up at a studio, but it's from me telling a friend about this project that I think would be great for a studio, and then I think it would be great for them to take a look at. And then on top of that, we attach talent to it, and we have a budget that they wanted to look at. We kind of just kept giving them stuff and give them a reason really not to say no. But as a producer, further to that, it's like you have to have a vision of like who you want to take this to, how you want it to get made, and so from the beginning of like, you really see something in the story, to then putting together a production plan, finding the right cast around it. But then ultimately the goal is like, you want this to be number one on Netflix. You want this to be number one at the box office. You want this to be, this is going to be a huge global film, or this is going to work for the small niche audience, but capturing this niche audience. Other films that have done something similar to that, this is kind of like what they do. And I know that because I reached out to those filmmakers to learn more about how they did it from this niche perspective. And so as a producer, really knowing the full scope and also
Mhm.
having that, having trusted relationships that can kind of guide you, is what makes this business so great. Because the truth is, everyone's looking for a winner. Everyone's looking for hot projects. Everyone wants your project to happen. If not, if there's a reason why they like, people also don't want to lose their job, so they want to take a risk on something, but you know, they want to help create successful projects. And so being able to have something that is like a really solid script that is undeniable, then
Mhm.
that's when you're working with something great. I had a script that recently I sold that the sales agent was like, "All right, I'll take a look at it." And I was like this was like after weeks of begging him, like, "Please, like, hey, I just want to follow up with you. Like, this script would be so great for you guys." And he's like, "Ah," and I'm like, "Trust me, I love the script, and it's gonna be so great for you guys." And then like on Friday, he's like, "Fine." He's like, "I'll read it over the weekend." And then like that Sunday, he's like, "I'm calling you Monday. This is fucking incredible." And it felt so good because like, it's really easy to sell something when something's great. It's not hard. Everybody wants good stuff, but you have to be in a position where the script is really great. The team in place is really strong. You have a really good production strategy, and you as a producer, you have a vision of how of where it's going to go. And I think,
Mhm.
um, it kind of circles back to like the don't give up, or like the keep moving forward approach of like, you believe in this vision. um don't think about it too hard. Just call the actor, call the agent, call the manager, call the studio. And if you believe in it, um even if this project doesn't work out, you've created so many new relationships because of this project that maybe can open the door with a new project, or you kind of find out what works and what doesn't. And um, you learn about the marketplace at the same time. I mean, I think our job as producers is really to just create great content, but we also, it's important to be able to serve great content and make stuff that is going to, disrupt the marketplace or stand out in the marketplace or be
Mhm.
really original. And I think that having that sensibility of like knowing what's going to work and what's not going to work, is really crucial. And on top of that, knowing how to manufacture that as well, and have control over that is fundamental. And so kind of having those two, with an investor, you can't say to a guarantee like, "Oh, you're going to make a ton of dough from this," or, "You're going to for sure make your money back. No problem." But you're going to say like, "I know that I can make a great movie, and I know this is what audiences want to see. And I think if we do this route, you know, we'll take it on a step-by-step basis, and you'll be with me every step along the way, and we'll make it together and be awesome. And let's go for a ride and let's go and do this." And I think, investors, especially people that want to throw money in movies, they kind of want that experience also of just like the thrill of like the risk and the reward of the, making a movie. And it's, you know, like because you're in it day to day, it gives them a buy-in to be able to participate in that also. So
Mhm.
I think that is a way to look at it as well.
And
Yeah.
can I make a comment?
Thank you.
Sure.
I think I've taken the wrong class. Uh, this really seems like producer talk and the attachment and distribution and all of that. I'm an actor, started as a writer, became an actor, back to writing now, and have had a couple of films made, and I got a play
Oh, cool.
that's out there. But I'm at the point where I'm doing a lookbook or a pitch deck and finishing scripts and trying to get it in the hands of producers who will do the very things you're talking about doing, which is not what I want to do. So am I right or am I wrong? I don't think this is the right class for me.
It's a step-by-step producing guide is the name
Yeah.
of the class.
Well, I'm a step-by-step dummy for taking this class because everything you're talking about is like something I want to get somebody else to do. I want somebody to read my material and go, yes, I want to produce this. So I don't know. I don't know how to back out and turn the page and maybe go to another class, but I've really paid for a lot of information that I don't need or
Well,
really
let me
wanna-
ask you, let me ask someone, has this been ever something where you think, um, uh, you know, what happens if you ever are meeting with a studio executive and they'd love to see some of your stuff and they'd love, for you to share with them? Would you ever put yourself in that position?
Well, I've been there before. I don't put myself in that position now. I don't live in California anymore.
Mhm.
So my problem is I'm working from Mississippi of all places, where I moved back to retire, and I had a movie made, had a Netflix movie made for Dolly Parton last year. And I got a play that's out there, and now I got several scripts that I want to get in hands of producers who are there and know something about distribution and know something about casting and know,
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Really
All
want to
right.
go and try and get it made.
Yeah, okay. So I'll go back to stage 32 and see if I can figure out how to transfer this to another class. I mean, I understand what you're talking about, but it really overwhelms me because I want somebody else to do it. So I won't take up any more time.
I hear you.
All right,
Okay.
guys. Good
Well,
luck with it.
thanks for letting me know.
Okay, talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Seemed like you got a lot out of the class. Well, cool. Well, I think, with, I, again, just to kind of circle back from the top, I think, um, the step-by-step approach is really, a great way to create a process for getting in sync to making movies, and anybody can do it. And that's one of the things that I really want to get out of this class is there's really no like secret to success. I mean, um, manufacturing great movies isn't something that only a few people can do. I think with the right steps, you can create quality content, and with the right team and the right people and the right experience. And then on the other side of it, uh, everybody can make friends, or creating a good network of trusted people, and does take a lot of putting yourself out there, and it does help if you live in LA or New York, or a city where you're constantly mixing with people from the same industry. But if you don't, then it's okay too. I think there's plenty of opportunity to just reach out on social media or filmmaking groups and just try and learn from people. And I don't know, I get hit up on LinkedIn a lot from people that are film students or new to the business and just want to learn about get more insight into filmmaking. And every single time I will take the meeting because I like to help. I know what it's like to be in their shoes and not really knowing which way to go or how to go about it. And so if I can be a help to them, I'm glad to do it. And I think most people, or I'd like to think most people are kind of that same way. And so networking is incredibly important, and showing up to events, putting yourself out there. You never really know who you're going to meet, and it's kind of a puzzle piece. And sometimes you meet the right person, and it's like completes the puzzle of like you were the missing piece that needed to get this film to where I want to go. What's important as a producer is where it wants to go, and you have a vision from it at the beginning. And so, if you're talking a slate, it's like, where do you want that slate to go? And how do you want the stories to really build? Is it a brand that you want to build around that slate? And do you want to have like A24? I would say, they do a slate of movies, but A24. And so when A24 comes on, what kind of movies you're getting. It's like, is that what you're building? It's like, then I think that would be a producing approach in terms of not looking at it as like one movie, but how you're trying to tell a story across multiple stories, and really have an effort to make something great and unique in the marketplace. Because I think what doesn't interest me as a producer is making the same old stuff. Like have trouble, like if I read a script and I think it's good, but it sounds like another movie or it feels like something's already been done before. And I think what really excites me is when there's a new concept or a new storyline that's completely original. And there's thousands of those that you can find, millions, and everybody has a great story. It's how do you formulate that into something that is to create that into an actual movie, and will that movie perform well in the marketplace? And as a producer, I think it's good to know from A to Z how that is going to operate. And so I think having this step-by-step approach is the one way to really control that. And again, it kind of starts with just having a script that you spend time on developing. You make sure that it's great. I financed I had an idea for a podcast during quarantine. It was a scripted podcast, and I was like, I'm just going to pay for it and make it. I want to do something. And I hired all these actors, and they were all like, "Guys, it's so funny. I love this." And then I was like, "Great." And I was like, "Everybody loves it." And then I released it, and no one really thought it was that funny. And I learned that, if you're hiring people, they're gonna, and generally people are gonna be like, "Oh, this is great. I love it. This is, let's do this." But they're looking for an opportunity. But I think you have to go beyond that to get the script consultation, to get honest feedback, and really cultivate that feedback and strengthen the story. And if it can get to a level where it's so good that it's undeniable, then that's where you want to start. But if you get this feedback where it feels like a real uphill battle, then you really have to ask yourself, is it worth climbing this battle to tell the story? Or is it something that I thought was good, but is not going to be great? Because the world we live in, only great works. Good doesn't really work anymore. It's there's too much content. It's hard to stand out. So unless something can be completely great, then it's a real challenge. And so if it is going to be great, then that's when building a team is really easy with finding great actors or great talent, a great director, other people that DPs or costume designers, production designers, other people that want to like collaborate and build on this great story. I think that is the next step. And then once you have all those pieces, then taking it out is really going to be that much easier. You can show an investor all the value that you've built up on this project and the potential. And that would be, that I think that's where you want to be when you get to an investor, get to a buyer. And then, on the other side of that is really kind of talking about it, going out to investors, talking about, your story and seeing if somebody kind of like connects with it and they want to hear more about the trajectory of like who you have on board, and call them and let them know, hey, I'm in talks with these people, and this person's interested, and see if like your relationship can kind of keep building to where it's something they want to jump in and be a part of. And I think that also works with studio contacts or sales agency contacts or distributor contacts, just letting them know what you have going on, or grab lunch and find out what they have going on, and kind of keep trying to, kind of build it together so that it suddenly it meets at the top where what you're making is what they're looking for. And I think you kind of have to construct that. And the overall vision is this, unique film that stands out, this unique slate of films that builds this whole new brand of storytelling. And so, it seems really like simple the way I explain it, I guess, like the A, B, C, D, but it's really it's challenging and it takes a lot of time. And it's not something that happens overnight, and you have to allow that. Like I have a movie that's looks like it's going into production in March, but it's taken 2.5 years to get there. And so I have another film that we casted within like a month, and it's with really big talent, and it's taken, we just did a studio deal a month ago for that one. It's going to be probably another 7 months before it goes into production. And so it's one of those things where you have to allow yourself and accept that it's going to take time. And I think mental health and believing in yourself and taking time away from it to really just not get so caught up in it that you lose sight of it, I think is really important too. I think so many people spend years of their lives trying to make something that doesn't get made. And I think at a certain point, and usually I think that's at the script phase, is you have to ask yourself, is it going to be worthwhile or not? Do you have goals? Do you have something that's so great that's worth pursuing? And so, it sounds like you guys have stuff that you really believe in and are looking for those steps to then take it to the next step, which is really getting out in the marketplace with it. And I think maybe before you do that, finding the right talent that also believe in it, that help strengthen the value of the package that you're presenting to an investor or a buyer.
I have another question, and if I am asking
Sure.
something you're not interested in, Dale, I am so sorry. Okay.
No, I very much appreciate it. I can only talk so much.
Okay. So in the past, this is my production company now. It's the first time I went solo. Before that, I was always partnered with people, and actually found that to be much more difficult. But I've had deals in the past where we got really close to funding and it fell apart, right? I feel like that's kind of what happens a lot in indie film. But
Yeah.
But one thing that I'm always a little unsure of, like, at what point I need to start demanding contracts get signed, right? Because so much of it is like a conversation with a person and they love your idea and blah, blah, blah. And then I've had stuff seem like everything was a go. And then I sent them like a production deal or a deal memo of some kind. And then it like stalled and fell apart. Do you have a strategy for like getting people on board for real? Instead of, because I feel like what ended up happening in a lot of these cases was I essentially ended up working at like for free for months on something, doing a lot of the heavy groundwork, and then them vanishing into thin air with all the work I had done because they wouldn't really like sign on to really like go for anything.
Was this with the greenlit or before being greenlit?
This was in the, I don't know, it was like in the interim. So we were starting to put like pay to play deals out to a couple name actors that we felt like they would go for. We were talking to reps, we're talking to financing. Money was not in escrow yet, but it was like the deal was all kind of just floating around the drain, right? Like about
Yeah.
And then that was where we were like, okay, now we should sort of get everybody officially like on board.
Doing long form agreements and locking it all in.
And that was when it would fall apart. And so then I've tried, I walked away from a project earlier last year, kind of for similar reasons, where I tried to get all the agreements signed sort of up front, because I was like, I'm not going to do all this work again.
Yeah.
If you guys aren't really serious about, following through. And basically one of the main girls involved, I think she just didn't understand contracts and didn't want to pay for a legal team to like go over everything, but she basically kept refusing to sign a contract. And so after a while, I just said, look, if you can't sign, I can't keep, like, I had brought on a writer, I had brought on a director, like it was in development of her concept, right? But she wouldn't sign the agreement. So I actually just tabled everything.
Was the money contingent on her involvement?
Well, she had the in with this foundation that was potentially going to be a majority funder for this project. So that was where I felt like
you should have some kind of deal with her to then make sure you were above water. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
So
I
I've
think, you
had
know,
that a couple times, and I just am curious if that's something that you're like, I always, I try to get it done by a certain step or whatever.
no,
Talk
that's
about
a
the
really,
step.
that's a really good question. In terms of like attaching, I usually like, you know, kind of have a step by step where it's like, they read the script, they like it, then they meet the director. If that conversation goes well, then we check availabilities and try and lock things in, and then from there, once we know they're available and they're into it, then we do a contract. We send out an agreement, and um, I had worked with one studio where like they would not go into production without all the contracts finalized, and so we had attorneys like on set at 5 a.m. locking it in because we wouldn't
Yeah.
roll a picture without it. And I think on some films that are like bondable, you have to have that in place before the bond is approved. And so it's definitely a challenge to get contracts done, but it's really a conversation with reps of like just kind of hammering at them to get it done. And so um it's not something I've ever had to walk away from, but I mean, I guess it gets to a certain point where if you're not like even negotiating it, or if you're not getting closer, like if they're not responding to the contract at all, then I guess moving on. But if they're redlining it and you're kind of going back and forth and trying to isolate what the issues are, so you can kind of lock in on one, then that's kind of, the hope is that you kind of just like negotiate to the point where you're good. All the terms are good, and sometimes like having a term sheet ahead of time before going into the deal is good, where your attorney can kind of say these are the overall terms, and then
Right.
see how you respond to those terms, and then from there go into contract and the long form. And so that's one way to expedite it. But if they're not going to actually even want to do a deal, then
Yeah, and I think some of it's because I'm often trying to find, like emerging talent. So they're not as familiar and they get a little
Yeah.
scared by contracts.
Well, I think creating like at that level too. I think creating the expectation of like, hey, to do this, we have to do a contract. Here's the reasons why we have to do a contract. I can't, release a movie without a distributor won't pick it up without this, so I have to do it. And so, and I want to have a relationship with you where we understand where both of us are at with this movie. So what I'd like to do is start off with the terms and say, here are the terms, from compensation, credits to scope of work, guaranteed, days, whatever, and just try and lay all that out and say, if you agree with all this, then we can then go to what's going to be a longer form agreement, which will be, a lot of lawyer talk, but that will be the actual agreement that we need to satisfy a distributor to get the movie released. Because if we can't get if we don't have the contract, we can't make the movie.
Right.
So,
And when it comes to like a letter of intent from like an actor, have you found
Yeah.
that is still enough, or is that not really enough anymore to try to secure, like, even if it's just a meeting with a distributor, like, do you think that that's enough of a package, or do they want to see that if everyone is like completely attached?
I don't know. A lot of what I do, and I guess everything's different, is like, like we'll usually hear from the manager or the agent, like they're on board, but it's not, official to the law, like we have the agreement, and kind of like it's an understood thing that like they're on board. And then, if there is a letter of intent, then that kind of helps with, it's not like I don't think it's any kind of binding thing, but it kind of helps with knowing that like that person is, is behind the project. So I think it's, the more stuff you have that can help, create a more valued package, then that works, but I don't think a letter of intent will you know, it's kind of like this gray area because it's like, you know, a serious distributor or serious investor will want a play-by-play, a pay-or-play contract, or they'll want a signed agreement. Um, or if you have them attached, um, you know, it's, you know, really just to me, it's like, you know, if they're down to do it and they say they're down to do it, I kind of roll with that and see, you know, uh, where that takes me. But
Right, okay.
I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, no, it does. I think I'm always just trying to find ways to make things feel more secure, and that's just hard with film.
Well,
not
it's
the
it's
most
hard because like
secure.
especially with talent, because like the agents and managers are trying to constantly book them, or like if they're, you know, really big name talent, then they're not going to want to be locked into something that doesn't have financing yet. If
Yeah.
they're into it, then like that, and you kind of like you're in talks, and I kind of keep it like we're in talks with this, you know, like
Right.
and so they're not going to want to get held down to it, so, or be bound by something that's not financed. So
Okay.
that's really the challenge. It's just again, that comes to like really building a relationship with the agent, building a relationship with the manager, and setting up meetings with the talent, talking about the project, where you're at, getting them really involved in it. And, you know, I think all that stuff really matters. Like if you get the like they're like, great, I'll do this, but then you go a year without talking to them, even with a letter of intent, it's like, who knows? They could be in, you know,
Right.
Australia filming, you know, a series for the next 5 years. So
Right.
really staying in touch and connected on the project. So
Okay.
any updates you have, you should let them know, and then, you know, constantly meet for coffee or something, or lunch.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I don't,
Thank you. That's helpful. Yeah.
does that help? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, great.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tricky thing, you know, like with attaching talent. And um, I think a lot of it is, you know, based on um, getting the agent or the manager to actually send it along to the talent to read, to review. So making sure that I know that's really the tricky part. I think really if you have a director that they know, or like they like there's like, you know, like just one Sundance or was in Sundance or
Yeah.
has
Some
like
buzz or something. They
some
can.
buzz. They're like, I don't want my talent to be like, why the heck did you not send it to me? That, you know, like this person, they don't want to drop the ball. So you know, it's making it so that it's something they don't want to have their client miss out on. But at the same time, you know, if you have a great relationship with with someone in that agency or someone from that firm, then maybe there's talking with them about like, how can I get to this person, or what do you need from me to do that? I'd love to. Maybe they read the script and they become an advocate for it, and they pitch the, you know, their coworker. So it's always some kind of, you know, strategy
Yeah.
of how to get to somebody. But you know, that's really the challenge with like film today, is because I feel like it's really contingent on who the actor is to get something
Right.
financed. So I also like have a lower budget movie where it's not contingent on, you know, actors, but it also helps having like cameo actors to, you know, to help with like something that's under 500,000, where it's not really named lead actors, but we do have a good cameo actor that's in that maybe if we want to get, like, we have some equity, but, you know, it'd be good to have a sales agent or somebody offer a minimum guarantee in addition to tax credits. And I think that's how I'll get the financing. And I think having a cameo actor might be the next move for me. And that's like for one of the projects I'm at now. So, you know, or, you know, putting together, work with a director and doing some kind of like sizzle or rip a mag or something that can really bring it to other investors and try and like close that gap. So but yeah, you know, I think
Do you think
each
for
project
something
is
like a
different.
slate, would it be helpful to have a sizzle or rip-o-matic or, you know, tone piece project on that slate. Like
I'm
that
sorry.
to show that you have, like a complete vision. Sorry, I don't know if it cut out.
Yeah. Say that again, a complete vision for a slate?
Like, do you think that for a slate, it would be important then to have a sizzle reel or Rip-O-Matic for every single project on that slate? Like,
No, I think doing like some kind of trailer for the slate of like different stories
all
and
of
the different characters. Yeah, and doing like a whole promo for it at the end, you're like,
Right. Okay.
yeah, your film, whatever, I think
Right.
that would be really cool. And I think it's I think slates are a big challenge because there's like it's a cool concept where it's like, what if one does well, one and three don't really do well, but that one makes up for all of them. It's like it's really I think it's definitely a challenging direction to go. I've tried it myself. I think it's a great concept and it's definitely something that people have done before and it's like possible. But I think also it's would be wise to look at it as like a bigger initiative too, like building a brand that makes these kinds of movies, or like look at it more of like, instead of like this 4-film bucket, maybe it's like
Right.
I'm building this business around these types of movies. And I would also look at like Vimeo has a platform for VOD where you can self-release on your VOD. And I think
Yeah.
how to capture a certain audience, because if you get like monthly subscribers or
Right.
revenue that comes in from a subscription-based platform, then maybe that'll help you with like building that audience up for certain type movies. And so because what happens if the first movie doesn't do well, or it's goes over budget, and then or you have this idea of like going back to back with productions, and it doesn't happen, like it's so many variables to just doing like one slate. So
Yeah.
I don't know, it's
Yeah.
exciting at the same time though.
I mean, I only started thinking of it just because I'm trying to diversify the risk a little bit, right? I mean, especially with all these like cross-genre, sort of unique, unconventional films, they may or may not find their audience right away. And I just basically want to be able to make enough of them that there is something of a familiar brand of like, oh, this company makes these kind of unusual pieces that are, unexpected.
Yeah,
in
I would
way.
research like people that do that, like that
Mhm.
have made slate movies, and like who like really identify who the audience is that they approach, and like kind of look at it from like a production or a business model,
Yeah.
So I mean, for me, I have 2 production companies, and I've kind of stopped looking at it as like building a business and more just one-on-one, just trying to get one film made, and then maybe I have like 7 movies I'm trying to get made right now, but I'm just kind of focusing on each one because I felt like within this marketplace, it's there's so many movies. It's like I don't know. For me, it made more sense to doing just like one movie, or telling stories that people connect with on an individual basis. So
Yeah.
but I
Okay.
think having a brand is really cool, or having a slate of stories that hit a certain audience. That I think each one, like I think it's very dependent on like how the first one does.
Yeah, that puts a lot of pressure on the first film though, huh? Because it's like you have
Yeah.
to pick your front runner, what you think is gonna go. Yeah, I mean, I feel like right now it's such an interesting time because it's so disrupted, between the
Mhm.
streamers and theatrical releases being, I mean, it's just so different than before. And I do think that there's a lot of opportunity there potentially if you can figure out, like what the unexpected way in would be. So that's,
Yeah, that's what's exciting, what the unexpected way in would be. I mean, there's really only so many channels in now.
yeah,
There's streaming, or there's like subscription based platforms, or there's the advertising based platforms, and then there's self distribution models, which is a whole nother business model. And it's like then there's um playing the foreign model, but that really is kind of whittled into like just certain types of like action movies or genre movies with foreign based, people that have value in
Yeah.
foreign markets. And so, I think finding good, creating really strong projects is really the only answer, like, and working with really good people that can help make it unique within either a subscription platform or an advertising platform. Like, how does it stand out? How is it something new? And that's the big thing.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of this information.
yeah, no, this is so exciting, and thank you guys for jumping in and being part of it.
Yeah.
I'm
I look
excited for the
forward
next
to
class.
the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys have signed up for all 3 classes, right?
Mhm.
Perfect. Well, cool. I don't know. Do you guys have any other questions? Dale, do you have any questions?
Well, I'm sitting on the fence. I really think that to get the most out of the class, I need to let you know who I am and what my project entails. I'm a writer first, and I wrote a script that has done sort of okay in some competitions, and I've had some feedback on it. And it has been suggested to me very recently that I either try to direct it myself as an indie or that I try to produce it myself. So that's why I'm here. On my calendar, I have a date to do a staged reading locally with some potential community members and also people who might possibly pitch in some funds to, I don't know if I want to do a short or a sizzle reel for what I want to do with it. So that's where I'm at. I'm wanting to learn as much as I can about the producing process so that I'm prepared for whatever is to come as I try to get people on board with the project. So it's a coming out story. The twist is that it's set against the backdrop of some serious homophobia and racism and going on in the background, and that the main character has to confront not only his real true identity, who he is, but how much he'll support and or love the people around him who are falling into the conflict or the homophobia. I'm really convoluted in how I'm describing the story, but it's essentially about 2 friends who are on opposite sides of the issue of love and hate and openness and closetedness, and so that's where I'm at with the story.
Dale, I have to tell you, that's really like, yeah, I feel like you're in a very exciting position because it seems like you really know exactly what story you want to tell, and you're putting it in front of people to really help make it better. And in terms of directing, and I think, you, if like as a short-term goal, directing the short film version of this could be like an incredible opportunity to not only tell the story, but kind of build a production team, kind of have a narrative vision of like the story you want to tell, and create an opportunity for yourself to really make the feature version of this and tell it in a bigger way, and get the experience making the short, enabling you to then go and do the feature and get people to support you in that venture, just from, and it seems like, a story that, that you have to tell. So I think that's really, I think it's powerful.
Well, thank you. It's been with me for a long time. It was a short many years ago at the AFI where I studied screenwriting. And only recently, like the last 2 years, I've been working on it as a feature.
I see.
I thought violence against gays and minority groups was kind of going away, but in the last couple of years, there's been a resurgence of hatred of all types of groups in this country.
Yeah.
And I wanted to explore that as a topic that is of concern to me and possibly could or should be to society in general. So that's where the story took on some additional enthusiasm. Or
Yeah, and I think because you did the short, I think it'd be probably good to do a new version of it that puts it in, updates it to today's themes or to the issues that are being captured today.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Do you
Okay.
mind if I throw out one quick thing for you?
Sure, Faye.
So I would say definitely submit it to festivals just because the LGBTQ film community is one of the most supportive film communities out there. I
Mhm.
had the privilege of producing a small, older, younger gay web series called Zach and Dennis, How It All Began years ago. And the creator actually passed away from COVID, but I got to write, direct, and eventually showrun second season. It's on Amazon Prime. It's this tiny little micro show. But one of the things is that was originally a short film, and that pilot episode short film ended up getting over 1 million views on YouTube, and that's sort of like how the series got started. So it's just a wonderful community of, they're very supportive of film content and any sort of content creation. So getting visibility through festivals will be especially impactful, I think, for something of that genre. That's just my experience with it.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very encouraging.
Yeah, that's a really great note. Yeah, especially getting it out there for to like get feedback and kind of strengthen the story and get insight on, perspective on the story too from a set community. So I think that's really smart.
Well, yeah, and the footnote here is that I live in Palm Springs, where there's a very large gay community and a lot of money and a lot of people looking to support community projects. So I'm in a great place for the beginning of this thing to take off.
Yeah, I want to encourage you, like be the producer on this and go and get it made and not wait for someone to tell your story or wait for someone to find the right producer. Be the producer, and I think just sharing your story and letting people know what you're trying to do, and it all kind of comes together.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think that's what it's all about: is inspiring people and collaborating, and that energy is really what formulates into like a powerful film. So I think you're onto something really great.
Well, thank you. Thanks. So I'm here to learn as much as I can to lay the foundation for something to follow or to come.
Awesome. Very cool. Thank you guys so much. I really love doing this, and I'm so glad that I get to work with you guys on these next 3 classes. My email, I don't know if you have it, but if you'd like it, I'm more than happy to share it. It's just my name, michael.wormser@gmail.com. Let me know where you guys are at, and then any questions or, I'd say, I've done one of these before where there's homework. I would say just for that, I would say kind of look at, find similar films and really try and deconstruct like who the crew is, who the cast, what the distribution was for that, how it did, and really kind of look at, kind of work backwards and figure out what the model is for your film.
Okay, cool. Is there anything we need to have prepared for the next class?
That would be the only thing. It's just kind of having that insight, and then in the next class we'll talk more about distribution, and we're like, once, like, this class is really about preparing to go out, and then the next class will be really about, let me just make sure I'm saying that correctly. Yeah, it'll be really about kind of going out with it, with the package. So we'll cover that a lot next class.
Okay, cool.
There is
Thank
a
you so
chance,
much.
Michael, just there is a chance that I might have to cut out early next time. I'm working on my schedule so that I can hopefully be here for the full time, but
Okay. And I apologize again. I don't know what happened. I logged in at 1 and I guess it didn't go through. So next time I'm sure it'll be 1 o'clock. So yeah.
All good.
okay.
Awesome. Thank you guys and have a great rest of the week.
Thank you.
You too.
All right. Bye guys.